Imagine yourself not merely as flesh and thought, but as a current within an infinite energetic ocean, your presence constantly vibrating, exchanging, absorbing, and radiating in tandem with the entire cosmos. Every phrase that leaves your lips, every silent reflection, every subtle whisper of emotion dances outward into this unseen field. It's easy to go through life without recognizing that the energy you emit is sculpted by what you entertain internally. Now think about the moments you've caught yourself voicing displeasure, venting about the tediousness of the day, lamenting frustrations, or echoing disapproval over things far removed from your grasp. Those seemingly harmless expressions, what do they awaken inside you? And more importantly, what invisible currents do they stir around you? Let's take a journey beyond surface understanding and delve into the largely ignored realm where the act of complaining becomes a pivotal force influencing the quality of your existence. Not just mentally or emotionally, but energetically, physically, and spiritually. This is about uncovering the hidden mechanics behind one of the most common habits in human behavior. What if each time you spoke from dissatisfaction, you weren't just narrating an unpleasant truth, but feeding an echo that reshapes your internal frequency? This isn't about positive thinking cliches or ignoring real pain. It's about awareness, about reclaiming power over the resonance you release into the world. Complaining is deeply embedded in the tapestry of daily life. It's found in casual conversations, muttered under breaths, posted in statuses, or voiced over lunch tables and coffee breaks. At first glance, it seems innocent, a simple act of expression, but underneath the words lies a deeper alignment. Complaining, in its essence, is not just a reaction to discomfort. It's a declaration of resistance against the moment itself. It's the energetic equivalent of trying to push back the ocean's tide. Each complaint says, "This reality is wrong. It should not be as it is. I reject this now." And in doing so, we subtly wage war against the present. This internal battle generates friction, not the kind that sparks inspiration or growth, but the kind that gnaws at our equilibrium. Ancient wisdom, echoed through sages and mystics alike, often emphasized that life is movement, transformation, and surrender to the unfolding. Heraclitus, centuries ago, taught that nothing is static, all is in flux. And yet, when we complain, we grip tightly to a version of how we think life ought to be, anchoring ourselves to a point of resistance. This anchoring disrupts not only our emotional flow, but our energetic coherence. It clogs the natural rhythm, stiffens the current, and leaves our field in a state of dissonance. Think of your inner landscape as a river. When acceptance flows, the water moves clearly, carrying nutrients and life through every part of your being. But when complaint enters, it's like throwing debris into the stream. Bit by bit, the current becomes obstructed, and eventually the water stagnates. Energy works the same way. The more you resist what is, the more your system clogs with dense frequencies. This stagnation is not metaphorical. It has physiological reflections. Science now confirms what mystics intuited. Thoughts, especially those repeated often, shape the brain's architecture. Neural pathways reinforce patterns, and emotional states become habitual circuits. Chronic complaining wires the mind into loops of negativity. The more you feed those circuits, the stronger they grow. Dr. Rick Hanson, a renowned researcher in neuroscience, notes that the human brain has evolved with a bias toward the negative, an evolutionary defense mechanism meant to alert us to danger. But in the modern world, where threats aren't saber-toothed predators, but delayed emails and financial stress, this negativity bias works against us. If left unchecked, it becomes a magnet for suffering. Complaining strengthens this bias, It creates a psychological echo chamber where dissatisfaction becomes the dominant lens. But it doesn't end with thought. Every pattern of thought triggers a corresponding emotional and chemical cascade. The brain, upon indulging in negative commentary, signals the amygdala, the region responsible for interpreting threat and emotional intensity. This ignites a release of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Now, cortisol has a crucial role in acute survival. It helps us react in emergencies. But when released continuously due to mental habits like chronic complaining, it becomes toxic. It chips away at immunity, fuels inflammation, and increases the risk of disease. It wears down the very foundation of well-being. As this hormonal soup circulates, the body speaks through symptoms. You might not connect the tension in your shoulders or the persistent fatigue to the words you've been speaking or the thoughts you've allowed to take root. But energy doesn't lie. The complaint that seemed trivial in the moment becomes a small leak in your energetic vessel. Over time, enough leaks can drain even the strongest current. This isn't philosophical musing. It's energetic law. Everything we emit, we circulate. Every lament carries a frequency. That frequency doesn't just fade into the void. It reverberates, collects, and returns. Have you ever noticed how being around a person who constantly complains can leave you feeling drained, heavy, or inexplicably irritable? That's not just emotional reaction. It's vibrational exchange. Each of us emits an energetic signature that influences the field we inhabit. Complaining not only alters your inner state but contributes to a collective cloud of heaviness. It's contagious. In families, workplaces, communities, negativity spreads like wildfire through emotional resonance. One person's unresolved frustration becomes another's energetic inheritance. The ripple multiplies. Spiritual disciplines across cultures have long understood this dynamic. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness emphasizes accepting the present without judgment. In Taoism, harmony with the natural flow, or the Tao, is central to well-being. When you complain, you disrupt this harmony. You cut yourself off from the current and invite internal chaos. This separation from flow is what many traditions identify as suffering, not the pain itself, but the resistance to what is. When you voice that resistance habitually, you amplify it in your field, creating an environment that attracts further imbalance. From an esoteric lens, the consequences stretch even further. It is believed that when our vibration becomes dense, laden with emotions like resentment, anger, or frustration, we become susceptible to influences that feed on low frequencies. Call them entities, energies, or simply patterns. The result is the same. Each complaint can be seen as a doorway, an opening where disruptive vibrations can enter. These forces intensify the very emotions that invited them, making it harder to break free. What started as a minor grumble turns into an energetic entanglement. This isn't fantasy, it's frequency. Just like a radio signal draws matching waves, your emotional output pulls in corresponding experiences. When you operate from a space of complaint, you vibrate at a level that draws more things to complain about. It's not personal punishment, it's resonance. The universe, in its impartial nature, reflects back the signal you send. If your dominant frequency is dissatisfaction, life will mirror that dissatisfaction. It becomes a cycle. Complain, attract trouble, complain more, and so it continues. Your body speaks the language of energy just as much as your mind. The chakras, those spinning wheels of energy that align the spine, are deeply impacted by your dominant emotional states. Complaining particularly affects two critical centers, the throat and the solar plexus. The former governs expression, the latter personal power and confidence. Habitual negativity clogs these centers, weakening your ability to communicate authentically and eroding your sense of agency. You might find yourself struggling to express needs, feeling unheard, or sensing a loss of inner strength, all rooted in energetic congestion. But again, this isn't just about what happens within. Every space you inhabit absorbs your frequency. The walls of your home, the air in your office, even the chair you sit in, all collect the echoes of what you repeat. Your aura, that subtle field surrounding your body, becomes a transmitter. If you dwell in complaint, your aura radiates low tones, influencing not only how you feel, but how others experience you. And in return, you're more likely to encounter people and situations that resonate with that lowered tone. The world becomes a mirror, reflecting your habitual output. Now consider the implications. Every moment is a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality. What picture are you painting when your palette is filled with criticism and frustration? When you consistently highlight what's wrong, you reinforce its place in your world. This isn't about guilt or suppression, it's about choice. A sacred power lies in your awareness of where your focus goes. Just as a musician tunes their instrument to create harmony, you can tune your mind and speech to broadcast clarity, peace, and openness. Yet the shift away from complaint isn't accomplished through force or denial. It begins with noticing, becoming aware of the impulse to resist, not shaming it, but observing it with curiosity. What if every time you caught yourself mid-complaint, you paused instead? What if you took a breath and asked, what am I really needing right now? Often complaint masks unmet needs, the desire to be seen, understood, respected, or soothed. When you identify the true longing beneath the surface, you reclaim your voice from the grip of automatic patterns. The invitation then is not to silence your truth, but to become more conscious of how you voice it. There is a difference between naming injustice and becoming its echo, between asking for change and radiating bitterness, between authentic expression and compulsive discharge. The energy you carry when you speak makes all the difference. Intention shapes resonance. You can choose to anchor into clarity instead of chaos. You can choose alignment over resistance. That choice begins now, with the next breath, the next word, the next internal whisper. This is not a lecture, it's a remembrance. You were born with a voice powerful enough to move mountains. But when that voice is enslaved by complaint, it loses its ability to uplift and create. When it's reclaimed with awareness, it becomes a tool of transformation. The time to reclaim it is now. In the stillness between thoughts, in that delicate space where breath pauses before the next inhale, lies an opportunity. The power to choose a different vibration. The cycle of complaint doesn't have to continue. The moment you become aware of it, you are no longer bound by it. You stand at the threshold between reaction and transformation. This isn't a philosophical luxury, it's a spiritual necessity, because every complaint is a withdrawal from your energetic bank account. It may seem like venting steam, but in truth, it's letting precious energy seep out through invisible cracks in your field. You've likely felt it before, that subtle heaviness after a long conversation filled with grievances. The weight that settles in your chest, the slight fog behind your eyes, the sensation of being energetically off. That's the body signaling that something precious has been spilled. And it isn't just emotional, it's biological, hormonal, vibrational. The body and the energy field are in constant dialogue, and when one suffers, the other listens. Repeating patterns of resistance broadcast messages through the fascia, the nervous system, and even down to the cellular level. The body starts to organize itself around the dominant frequency you hold, be it expansion or constriction. In every sacred tradition, the concept of vibration is foundational. Whether referred to as chi, prana, spirit, or breath, the idea is the same. Life is movement, and that movement has tone. When complaint becomes habitual, it drops that tone. Like playing an instrument that's slightly out of tune, the harmony within begins to warp. You might still go through your routines, complete your tasks, keep your schedule, but something is subtly discordant. Your days feel heavier, your nights more restless. The flow of synchronicities dries up, replaced by friction, delays, and inexplicable tensions. This is the field of resonance reacting to your signal. It's neither punishing nor rewarding, it's simply responding. Just as a singer's voice can shatter glass by hitting the right frequency, your spoken words and silent beliefs can shape the reality you stand within. If those words are soaked in rejection, disappointment, or blame, then the energy they carry will seed more experiences that mirror those exact vibrations. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it is precise. It listens not to what you want, but to what you are broadcasting. Now imagine the internal damage done over months or years of steady complaining. Not only does it forge deep ruts in the brain's architecture, but it corrodes the bridges between you and peace. Your intuition, once clear and strong, becomes muted. Your ability to sense subtle guidance, the internal compass that once steered you toward flow, is drowned beneath the noise of chronic dissatisfaction. Spiritual sensitivity requires openness, but complaint closes. It hardens. It wraps the heart in a shell of defensiveness, convincing you that safety comes from controlling what is, rather than surrendering to what could be. The heart chakra, seat of compassion and inner truth, withers under the pressure of constant complaint, because at its core, complaining is a refusal to trust the moment, to trust your strength, to trust life itself. It's a clenching, a bracing against the tides. And in that posture of bracing, you block not only discomfort, but joy, beauty, grace. The very things your soul hungers for are repelled by the same wall that complaint builds. It's not a matter of morality, it's physics of the soul. Let's speak now of space, not outer space, but the internal spaciousness that allows you to breathe deeply and move through life with presence. Complaining shrinks that space. It narrows perception, collapses options, and turns wide open landscapes into tight corridors. You begin to see only what's wrong. You miss the glint of sunlight through the window, the kind gesture of a stranger, the quiet alignment unfolding beneath your feet. Your world contracts, and in that contraction, anxiety takes root. It's not just the words that weigh heavy, it's the lens they create. Through that distorted lens, people begin to feel threatening, opportunities appear risky, and love seems conditional. Life starts to look like a series of problems to be solved rather than mysteries to be experienced. The soul, meant to soar, finds itself grounded by the cumulative weight of judgment. And it all begins with words. Words as tools, words as traps, words as spells. Because make no mistake, every word is an invocation, every sentence an incantation. When you speak from complaint, you are summoning that vibration into your field. That's why breaking the pattern isn't just psychological, it's spiritual alchemy. You're not just changing thoughts, you're reclaiming power, turning lead into gold, rewiring the subconscious, re-educating the nervous system. This transformation is about more than avoiding negativity. It's about stepping into the role of conscious creator, no longer held hostage by reactions, but standing firmly in your sovereign frequency. You become the author of your resonance. And it starts simply, not with grand declarations, but with gentle awareness. When the impulse to complain arises, and it will, pause, breathe, listen. Don't suppress it, don't indulge it, just notice. Let that noticing create a gap, a sliver of stillness, in which choice becomes possible. In that space, you can ask a different question, not, "What's wrong with this?" but, "What is this moment asking of me?" That question reorients your entire system. It shifts your focus from resistance to curiosity, from battle to bridge. And from that bridge, you can begin to build new pathways, not through force, but through frequency. One of the most powerful tools for transmuting complaint is gratitude. Not performative gratitude, not surface-level affirmations, but deep, embodied, soul-rooted appreciation, the kind that wells up when you let yourself truly see. Not what's missing, but what's holding you. The breath in your lungs, the beat of your heart, the ground beneath your feet, the unseen forces that kept you alive even on the days you didn't know how to continue. Gratitude is not a denial of pain. It is the recognition that even pain is held within something larger, that there is always more happening than you can perceive, that life, despite its sharp edges and tangled threads, is still offering you something sacred in every instant. When you shift your attention toward that offering, your vibration changes instantly, not slowly, not incrementally, instantly. Because frequency is immediate. You don't have to solve everything to shift, you just have to redirect the flow. The practice of appreciation is like turning on a light in a dark room. You begin to see what was always there, but obscured by the shadows of expectation. And as you see more, you feel more. And as you feel more, you align more. The body relaxes, the mind clears, the heart softens. This is the beginning of coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and energy field begin to move in the same direction, this is where miracles occur, not because something external changed, but because you became available to receive what was always meant for you. It's important to understand that gratitude is not a technique, it's a state of being. And like any state, it is cultivated through repetition, through practice, through intention. Just as complaining becomes a habit through frequent use, so too can thankfulness. Each time you choose to focus on what nourishes rather than what irritates, you are rewiring the brain, repatterning the energy field, and upgrading the frequency of your entire reality. This is the spiritual work, done not in temples, but in traffic, in conversations, in the silent spaces between tasks. If you want to see proof, don't look outside. Look within. Notice how your body feels when you complain versus when you appreciate. Pay attention to your breath, your posture, your tone. You'll see immediately that complaint tightens while gratitude expands. One constricts the flow, the other opens it. One invites more resistance, the other welcomes grace. This is your power. Not the power to control outcomes, but the power to direct your alignment. To be the one who chooses the frequency they live in. It's not about being perfect, not about never feeling frustrated or sad. Those emotions are part of the human palette. It's about knowing what to do when those feelings arise, how to hold them without becoming them, how to let them move through without anchoring them into your field through repetition. Emotions, when felt and released, are energy in motion. But when clung to, narrated, and repeated, they become stuck. That's when they become identity. I am angry. I am tired. I am over it. These are not observations. They are declarations, and they build structures inside your consciousness. To dissolve those structures, you must reclaim the silence beneath them, the space that says, I feel this, but I am more than this. That space is where freedom lives. It's where you begin to see life not as something happening to you, but through you. Complaint sees life as adversary. Gratitude sees life as teacher. And in that shift from enemy to guide, everything softens. Even the pain begins to reveal its purpose. Even the confusion begins to birth clarity. This is not abstract spirituality. This is embodied frequency work. It's the real-time process of reclaiming your energy and redirecting it toward coherence. When you do this, you not only transform your own life, you become a living transmission. Your presence starts to affect others, not through effort, but through resonance. People feel safer around you, more grounded, more inspired, because your field is no longer leaking or clawing, it's holding. It's transmitting stability, joy, and presence. That is the true impact of shifting from complaint to alignment. You become a stabilizing force in a chaotic world. You become a reminder to others of their own power. You stop feeding the collective storm of resistance and start radiating the frequency of grace. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it is profoundly transformative. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity, more stillness, more souls anchored in their own sacred resonance. So the next time you feel the urge to complain, pause, not to suppress, but to redirect. Ask yourself, what is the frequency I wish to embody in this moment? Not what do I feel entitled to say, but what do I choose to become? That question, repeated often enough, will rewire your life. It will not change every circumstance, but it will change how you meet each circumstance. And that is where your power truly lives, not in the external, but in your internal navigation system. Every word you speak casts a ripple into the field. Every thought you entertain builds a bridge or a wall. You are not a passive observer of life, and you are its co-creator. With every breath, every sentence, every moment of attention, you sculpt the reality you live within. What will you sculpt today? What kind of resonance will you leave behind for others to feel? What legacy of vibration will you carry forward into the next moment? Because in the end, you are not defined by what you resist. You are defined by what you choose to embody. There comes a moment when the inner voice begins to whisper a question that cannot be ignored. What would life feel like if I no longer defaulted to complaint? Not silencing myself, not pretending challenges don't exist, but simply stepping out of the familiar habit of resistance. What if, instead of reflexively pointing to what's broken, I chose to become aware of what's breathing, thriving, unfolding beautifully right now? That moment, however fleeting, holds the seed of transformation, a seed not planted in circumstance, but in conscious direction. Breaking the cycle of complaint doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop leaking your attention, leaking your energy, draining your spirit into every situation that doesn't align with your ideal. There's an illusion that complaining grants us power, that naming the wrong gives us leverage. But in reality, every complaint repeated without solution is a hand reaching into your own reservoir, pouring your life force out onto a ground that doesn't bloom. You give power to what you continue to argue with. You energize what you obsessively resist. The great paradox is this: when you argue with life, you lose. But only every single time. Life moves, it flows, it adapts. It presents you with raw material, and your consciousness decides how to shape it. Do you carve meaning out of it, or do you throw it back with disdain? The moment you stop seeing circumstances as enemies and begin to view them as invitations, your inner chemistry shifts, your thoughts rearrange. Your nervous system begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a symphony warming up to perform something sacred. You've been given one instrument, your voice, your attention, your field. How you use that determines what kind of music you contribute to the collective hum of existence. And when your instrument plays in discord, when it vibrates only with what's lacking, it creates a dissonance not only in you, but in those around you. You've walked into rooms where the air felt heavy even before a word was spoken. You felt the temperature drop in a conversation filled with silent resentment. That's not imagination. That's vibration. That's energy speaking before the tongue has a chance. Every person is a tuning fork. You strike yourself with your focus, and the sound carries outward. So when your thoughts ring with complaint, that becomes the tone you walk with. Even when you're silent, the frequency doesn't disappear. It emanates, and those around you feel it, even if they don't understand why they feel suddenly irritable, tired, or withdrawn. Energetic hygiene is as real as physical cleanliness, and when complaint becomes chronic, it's like carrying mud on your boots into every interaction. It coats the floor of every relationship with something sticky and hard to wash out. But if you become a guardian of your energy, if you decide to treat your frequency as sacred ground, everything changes. It begins with awareness, but it deepens with intention. Replacing complaint is not about censorship. It's about clarity. It's about learning to discern when your words are lifting the room or lowering it, when your attention is watering seeds of hope or feeding weeds of despair. It's about becoming a gardener of your reality. And like any gardener knows, the quality of your soil determines what grows. When you live from complaint, your inner soil becomes dry, compacted, resistant to nourishment. Joy cannot take root there. Creativity has no room to stretch. Possibility withers before it even sprouts. But when you choose curiosity over judgment, when you direct your awareness toward gratitude, even in the tiniest of details, your soil softens. It becomes fertile ground. Synchronicities start to blossom. Conversations deepen. Opportunities emerge from places you weren't even looking. This isn't magic. It's alignment. When you align with life, life begins to flow in ways that require less force, less hustle, less anxiety. And that's where true power resides. Not in controlling everything around you, but in cultivating the inner state that makes peace possible, regardless of circumstance. Complaint robs you of that peace. It distracts. It delays. It diverts your energy into a loop that never resolves, because complaint without action is a wheel without traction. It spins, but it goes nowhere. That's why it's not just what you say that matters. It's what you intend when you say it. You can speak hard truths with love. You can express disappointment without dragging the energy down. You can name injustice without becoming consumed by rage. It all depends on the frequency beneath your words. Are you building or breaking? Are you clarifying or clouding? Are you healing or harming? Complaint spoken from unconscious habit is like pouring salt into a wound. But when you become conscious of your speech, you become a medicine maker instead of a toxin carrier. This shift requires discipline, but not the harsh kind, not punishment, not judgment. The discipline of presence, the choice to return again and again to your power, the decision to witness the rising urge to complain, and in that moment, to pause, to breathe, to inquire. What am I really needing right now? Is this expression serving anyone, including me? Is there another frequency I could choose? These simple questions break the spell. They restore you to your role as conscious conductor of your own energy. And when you begin to ask these questions regularly, you'll start noticing something miraculous. Space opens up inside you. Where there was tension, there is softness. Where there was panic, there is perspective. Where there was contraction, there is expansion. That space is where new choices are born. It's where you stop being a slave to reaction and become a co-creator of meaning. It's not about never feeling annoyed or frustrated. It's about not letting those emotions hijack your entire vibration. Think of the body like a finely tuned temple. Each thought, each word, each emotional spike echoes through its chambers. When you speak with resentment, it resonates in the chest. When you dwell in anxiety, it echoes in the gut. When you hold on to judgment, it stiffens the neck and shoulders. The body doesn't lie. It absorbs and reflects your energetic state constantly. And over time, that state becomes a pattern. That pattern becomes posture. That posture becomes a story, one you carry without realizing it. But when you begin to nourish your inner state with presence and appreciation, the temple responds. Muscles unwind, breath deepens, vision clears, digestion improves, sleep stabilizes, immune function strengthens. You're no longer under siege. You're in rhythm. You're in tune. The vibration of complaint keeps the body in defense. The vibration of gratitude invites rest, regeneration, and repair. And that's not just poetic, it's biological. Science has shown again and again that stress weakens the immune system, that chronic negativity disrupts hormones, blood pressure, and heart rate variability, that prolonged states of resistance trigger inflammation, tension, and fatigue. These are not abstract ideas. They are lived experiences, and the gateway to transformation often begins not in medication, but in meditation, not in external shifts, but in internal realignment. The decision to speak with love instead of complaint is not small, it is revolutionary. And this revolution begins in ordinary moments: the spilled coffee, the missed appointment, the harsh email, the bad traffic. Each of these instances presents a fork in the road. Do I feed the old narrative of irritation, or do I pause and find the thread of acceptance? Do I become the complaint, or do I become the calm presence within it? The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more beings who know how to anchor peace even when the winds howl. That kind of peace starts with how you relate to the moment, and sometimes you won't succeed. Sometimes the old programming will take over. You'll complain, you'll rant, you'll fall into the trap again, but that too is part of the path. What matters most is that you notice it, that you don't compound the frequency by layering shame on top of the habit, that you treat each misstep as a reminder, not a failure. You are not meant to be perfect. You are meant to be aware, and awareness is always enough to bring you back to the breath, back to the body, back to the present moment, which is the only place real change can happen. That is where your freedom lives, not in wishing for different circumstances, but in choosing a different way of relating to the ones you have. In that choice, complaint loses its grip. It becomes less seductive, it fades, and in its place rises something much more powerful: gratitude, clarity, wisdom, peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need everything to be okay in order to feel whole. That is the frequency the world is waiting for. That is the vibration that heals not only you, but everyone you touch. When you choose presence over resistance, when you choose appreciation over grievance, you are creating ripples that extend far beyond your own life. You are changing the field. You are planting seeds that may bloom in places you'll never see. That is the legacy of frequency. That is the real impact of your inner work. And so the invitation stands. Let the next breath be softer. Let the next thought be clearer. Let the next word be a reflection of who you truly are, not who you were trained to be by habit or pain. You are not a vessel for complaint. You are a beacon of presence. You are not here to echo what's wrong. You are here to radiate what's possible. And when that becomes your dominant intention, your life will become a mirror reflecting grace instead of grievance. The path is simple, though not always easy, but it begins with a single decision. I will no longer waste my energy repeating the vibration of what I don't want. I will no longer be the mouthpiece of misery. I will speak what heals. I will think what uplifts. I will become the harmony I wish to hear in the world. Not someday. Now. There is a power that lives inside your voice, one that extends beyond volume or articulation. It's a current, a pulse, an unseen signal that carries your inner state outward into the fabric of the universe. And what you express repeatedly becomes your signature, not just to the world, but to your very cells, your breath, your destiny. When you move through life narrating discontent, you create an energetic blueprint that informs how your days unfold. This is not about pretending all is well when it isn't. It's about realizing that how you relate to what is happening matters more than what is happening. Every sentence you speak is an offering to your field. It's a spell you cast, knowingly or not. When the words are rooted in resistance, your energy tightens, shrinks, curls inward like a flower withdrawing from the cold. That withdrawal becomes habitual. You start moving through life guarded, reactive, unable to fully feel joy, because your nervous system is too busy anticipating the next reason to complain. But when you shift from reaction to recognition, from resistance to response, you regain your ability to breathe fully again. Not just physically, but energetically. Life was never meant to be navigated through bitterness. You were never designed to harden yourself in order to survive. Your truest nature is not complaint. It is awareness. It is that quiet intelligence within you that notices everything, feels everything, yet chooses not to identify with every passing shadow. That awareness is where your freedom lives. It doesn't demand that life be perfect. It simply insists that you meet life with presence instead of projection. That is how the cycle of complaint is broken, not by silencing emotion, but by shifting how you carry it. The energy of gratitude doesn't require grand gestures. It thrives in the ordinary. It blooms in the unnoticed details, the way light hits the wall in the morning, the warmth of tea between your palms, the way your lungs rise without being told. These are not small things. They are sacred invitations to come back home to yourself. When you train your awareness to return to these places, you rewire your relationship with life itself. The same day that once felt hollow becomes rich. The same hour that dragged suddenly holds meaning. And the miracle is that nothing outside of you had to change. That's the truth so few ever realize. The source of your peace is never outside you. No person, no situation, no outcome can consistently provide it. Because peace isn't circumstantial, it's vibrational. It's a frequency you commit to moment by moment. And when you make that commitment, your presence changes. You become someone who calms a room without saying a word. Someone who walks into conflict and somehow brings clarity. Someone whose quiet is louder than most people's noise. That is the gift of energetic sovereignty. Complaint is seductive because it feels like connection. You bond with others over shared grievances, venting in groups, feeling momentarily heard. But connection built on shared negativity is unstable. It lacks depth. It fractures easily. When the complaining stops, what remains? Often very little. But when you build connection through shared vision, appreciation, laughter, curiosity, the bond strengthens. It holds. Because it's rooted in expansion, not contraction. In growth, not griping. You don't need to share wounds to feel seen. You can share wonder. And that wonder begins when you look at the world not through the lens of what it owes you, but through the awareness of what it's already given. Breath, consciousness, the chance to begin again, here and now. That shift rewrites your entire inner map. Suddenly you find beauty where you never looked before. Suddenly you find softness where you once carried armor. And your voice, once filled with echoes of frustration, begins to sound like song. Not to flatter, but to elevate. Think of your life as a river. When you complain, you toss in rocks. Eventually the flow is blocked. Stagnant water collects. You wonder why things feel stuck, why clarity is gone. But each stone was a thought, a sentence, a story repeated until it hardened. Now imagine choosing differently. Each moment of gratitude becomes a clearing, a small shift that makes way for the water to move again. You don't need to excavate all at once. One clearing at a time is enough. That's how rivers remember their path. You were never meant to live in a loop of emotional congestion. The human spirit craves movement. It wants to flow. When you stop narrating your limitations and begin observing them, you give yourself the freedom to outgrow them. You stop reinforcing your past and start writing a new timeline, one breath at a time. And that new timeline doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be real, rooted, honest. You can be aware of injustice without becoming bitterness. You can grieve and still glow. The vibration of complaint dulls intuition. It clouds your ability to hear the whisper of your soul beneath the noise. But when you clear the static, your inner guidance becomes louder. You begin to notice patterns. Not just the negative ones, but the synchronicities, the nudges, the signs pointing toward alignment. You begin to trust the unseen again, to feel held, not just by people, but by life itself. And that trust becomes your new foundation. This isn't about bypassing pain. It's about choosing not to bathe in it. Pain visits all of us. It teaches, it purifies, it awakens. But suffering, prolonged and recycled, is often the product of focus. The mind's insistence on replaying stories, assigning blame, resisting what was. Complaint is often grief that hasn't been properly felt. When you allow yourself to feel fully, not dramatize, but feel, the need to complain begins to dissolve. Emotion passes. Clarity emerges. The inner sky clears, even if clouds return tomorrow. Your evolution is not measured by how happy you are, but by how willing you are to meet life as it is without losing yourself. Complaining is a subtle way of saying, I have no power here. But that's a lie. You always have power, maybe not to change the event, but always to choose the frequency in which you hold it. And that choice, repeated with devotion, creates momentum. Eventually, that momentum becomes your new baseline. And from that baseline, you begin to magnetize differently. People sense something different about you. Opportunities feel more organic. Life stops feeling like something you have to push through and starts feeling like something you're being pulled toward. That's the magic of alignment. It doesn't make you exempt from hardship. It just changes the way hardship moves through you. It moves. It doesn't stay. And that movement is everything. So the next time you're tempted to vent, pause. Ask yourself, is this complaint calling something new into being, or is it just echoing what I no longer want? Is this story one I'd be proud to hear on repeat? Is this sentence feeding clarity or confusion? If the answer is unclear, wait. Silence is often wiser than repetition. And if the answer is gratitude, speak it. Let it rise in your tone. Let it color the room. Gratitude has no side effects. It only opens. You don't need to turn your whole life around overnight. You just need to shift your tone, one breath at a time. Replace commentary with presence. Replace assumption with curiosity. Replace complaint with appreciation. And when you do this consistently, you'll notice something miraculous. Reality responds. Not because you've manipulated it, but because you've attuned to it. You've stopped wrestling with life and started dancing with it. And the dance is ancient. It requires rhythm, awareness, surrender. You don't lead every step, or sometimes life leads. But when you're present, when you're grateful, when you listen, the dance becomes effortless. You step lightly. You don't stumble as often. And even when you do, you laugh instead of collapse. You've stopped building your identity around the fall. You've remembered how to rise. Your voice is sacred. Use it as a bridge, not a barrier. Use it to build, not to break. Speak with the intention to uplift, not to drain. Let your presence be a blessing in the spaces you enter, not an anchor of resentment. You don't need to fix the world. You just need to stop echoing its suffering unconsciously. Bring something new, something whole, something rooted in truth. Because when your vibration changes, everything changes. You no longer attract chaos just to feel alive. You no longer seek sympathy as a substitute for connection. You no longer chase drama as a form of stimulation. You've outgrown those frequencies. You've remembered who you are, not a victim, not a passive reactor, but a vibrant, pulsing, alive participant in the sacred web of being. And your energy matters more than you ever knew. So speak now with reverence. Move with awareness. Notice what you feed with your attention. The world is listening. The field is responding. And your future is not written in stone. It's written in frequency. Every thought is a brushstroke. Every feeling, a color. Every word, a texture. What kind of masterpiece are you painting with your presence? Let this be the moment you choose differently, not tomorrow. Now let your voice be the beginning of your next chapter, one not built on repetition but on revelation, one not rooted in resistance but in resonance. Because the energy you emit will always come back, not as punishment, but as reflection, and you are no longer someone who echoes what you were taught in struggle. You are someone who creates what you now choose in wisdom. Thank you for witnessing this journey. May your words become light. May your presence become medicine. May your thoughts shape a reality worth living, not just for you, but for every soul who crosses your path.